Hello, friends. Good evening. Welcome to another session of our Paws live webinar. Today, we have a very great award winning wildlife photographer with us based in Hyderabad. He is known for his creative camera trap photography. And in 2018, he launched his first photography product, the TurtlePro. A lot of the photographers, wildlife photographers, already have it in their hand, which used to capture remote controlled photographs, high quality images of very elusive animals in their natural habitat. And his name is Anjani Kumar. Let's welcome. Hello.
Hi, brother.
Good, good, good. How are you?
Good, brother.
Thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. So we all the audience we like to hear a small intro from yourself, like how you started and how you reached the current photography stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I was always into, wildlife. Probably I started at around 2006 as just a tourist.
Yeah.
I was never interested in photography or nor that was my trip. I started, watching wildlife for about say 7 years without the camera. So that is
Okay.
from 2006 to 2013. I was just about mad about tigers. So nothing else. I just wanted to go, a couple of drives
Yeah.
a year and just enjoy the jungle and all. So it was never about photography, but somehow, with the social media and all that and peer pressure, I was assisting, photographers like Masood and Daksharat and
Okay.
Ashok Kandimala
Yeah.
and all. So they slowly pushed me into this, and somehow in the late 2013 and early 2014 is where I actually started documenting the wildlife or started learning photography.
Okay.
So as I kept going into it, then there was a point of time that I thought, I would do something different and try something different. So in about 2018 is when I started this remote photography and camera trapping work.
Hmm.
So that's a brief about me.
Great. So let's go through the presentation now, so we understand more.
Yeah, basically, this is the background. I think everybody starts off, whenever they buy a DSLR, it's usually with an 1855 lens. And then as you start photographing, and that's when you realize that, you don't have enough focal length. And then you slowly move into a 70-300 or a 70-250. And then again, you'll feel, the bird is still smaller in your frame. And slowly you move to that 500 mm and 600 mm, and that's been a common journey, and even I was about there. And then there was a time when I was listening to these photographers who would say, you don't need a longer lens to take good photograph, and I would be thinking that you buggers, you are getting so close shots, and you expect people to take with a wider lens. But as you keep photographing, that's where you understand the beauty of a wide angle or whatever. And then I started traveling back from a 600 to an 1855, and I think it's been about 2018 to now, and most of my images are under that 20 mm focal length range.
Okay.
And the I would tell you the difference is, where you go into a regular forest, it is you would capture what is available in front of you, or what there could be moments when you are very lucky to capture some nature history moments or something very unique. But
Yeah.
otherwise, on a regular trip, you would be limited to the place where you are sitting or a gypsy or everywhere, you cannot just go around or walk around, take your positions and do. So you are limited to that one. So from there, when you come to this remote photography, it would be more of a making of an image than you are actually creating a scenario.
Yes.
You're trying to set up a scene, light up the scene, and you're getting an animal the way you want, and the way you want that entire frame to be. So of course, it is going to be a wait and watch game, and you're not going to be lucky all the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of patience required, in this game. But you would transition from getting or capturing a particular frame of what you've been seeing to what you've pre-visualized, what you've been dreaming of, and trying to execute the same thing in the wild. So there is a difference in the approach when you get to the remote photography, and that's really satisfying. Whenever you get an image, what you visualize, what you dreamt of, or what you've been fantasizing about, and you get that image, and that's most satisfying. And of course,
Yeah.
sometimes nature will bless you with a lot of surprises and also a lot of failures too. And more than being good or anything like that, I wanted to be different. I mean, not that there are not many players right now in remote photography or camera trapping, but again, I would say, at least at the time I was starting, there were not many players in it. I wanted to have a very different perspective and not what everybody else was doing it.
Yeah.
So I think still, remote photography is still on a niche stage, and it's not that everybody is into this particular game. Then there's a point when I started thinking that if all the 40, 50 gypsies who would go on to field that day, would get more or less the same kind of an images, and I wanted to be a little different from that, and I was trying out stuff. And right now, for the kind of stuff I'm doing, species don't matter much. I mean, any species would do as long as I, get that a really nice wide angle
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the whole thing about me, getting into this game or genre. Yeah, coming to why remote photography, and why not or rather, what are the advantages of remote photography when compared to your regular long length telefocals and stuff like that. you know the images are going to be much more impactful, aesthetically stronger images. It's like you're going to get both the portrait and the landscape together. You can get really close up of an animal, and at the
Yeah.
same time you can also show the habitat under which it is there, and the environment. And you can also include a lot of properties like, say, mountains, trees, or the
Yeah.
river or ocean or whatever is there on the backdrop. So you can utilize a lot of the spacious spaces available for you. You're not just restricted to just the portrait of the animal, and the entire thing goes into a bouquet or an out of focus kind of an image. So you get to use the space much more better manner, and showing it in a natural habitat. And this is where you get both the really intimate up close, and a personal sort of an image, and also the habitat as such. So that is one, and you really get a chance to get to that eye level. Say, for example, fishing cat or whatever, which is just about a feet and a half or whatever. So every shot you could get that really low angle, or the eye level, or the below the eye level kind of a perspective.
Okay.
And whenever you get below the eye level perspective and try to open up the entire scenario, and you also show the ambience and the sky and stuff like that. So this would also exhibit the prominence or the dominance of that particular species, even if it is small, with respect to a larger trees around you. And
Yeah.
the smaller creature also will start looking up as big as the larger trees behind that particular subject. So it keeps, getting very interesting when you have this kind of frames to play around with. Because again, you get to capture those really close details and physical characteristics. I mean, not that you could not do it with a 400 or a 600 lens, but I mean, this becomes a very interesting part of the whole picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is again a regular, wide angle, shot which has been taken from a regular gypsy, where I'm able to show the habitat and also the creature. But the moment you get to that low, wide, under 18 this is a much smaller species compared to a tiger. But I mean, look at the way it would be dominating the entire
Yes.
space over there. I mean, it looks very interesting and uh, dominant. So, I mean, this is an interesting thing where even you could target smaller species and make it look really big and magnanimous in that particular frame. This is again a
Oh,
interesting frame of an otter I could get. This again a fishing cat, where a lot of details of the image, and then you get to see her, webbed feet and stuff like that, and then you have the
yeah.
sky, the trees on the backdrop, and the mangroves. So there is so much of inclusion which you can do, in terms of depicting the way the that particular species would stay in that environment.
Yeah. Oh,
This is again, I think I was the first one to document a fishing cat with the fish in the wild. I think there are some more people who've got it recently, but I think this is the first ever image in the wild, not in
okay.
the zoo, where
Okay.
I could get this fishing cat hunting. And this was taking this fish to its little kittens somewhere inside. So these are again some rare moments which you could capture. Yeah, this is what I was saying. This is just about a feet and a half, and the trees behind are about 40 or 45 feet behind, and where this really looks dominant over here. Yeah, and this is a buggy which I first made it for myself, and when a lot of people have started asking for it, now I've launched it in the name of TurtlePro, and I'm also offering it to people.
Yeah.
So the one on the left is the buggy with the enclosure and the flash mounts and all that. And on
Okay.
the right, you would see the control station. It's basically your regular RC car control kind of a control station with some FPV monitor.
Okay.
But you have put everything into a good Pelican case kind of a thing, so it's easy and convenient to you know travel.
Okay.
Okay, and so this is right now for the Nikon cameras, the Canon, the Nikon, and the Sony cameras.
So you have the controller for all the three cam brands.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Oh,
basically, for Nikon and Canon, you can just do the autofocus and the shutter release. But
okay.
for Sony, you can also zoom in and zoom out,
Okay.
and you can toggle between video mode and a photo mode and stuff like that. Of course,
Yeah.
I mean, there are add-on features where you could add, where you can start controlling the camera, the ISO,
Hmm.
and all that stuff. But that's for more advanced, and unless people ask for a very high-end customization, I don't do. I mean, basically, this would suffice for your entire work, and it will not, limit you from getting any particular shot.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is how it looks on the field. Yeah. Again, coming to the buggy part, why a buggy? It's more, mobile, where you could take the buggy to wherever the animal is there and the subject is there,
Yeah.
and you have a better control of the scenario. Like for example, in camera traps, your lighting is set. The moment tie up the camera trap there, there's nothing much you can do, to change the scenario or what. But when
Yeah.
it comes to a buggy, to get those low and wide angle, you have a lot of control on the scene. You can select your background, you can change the background depending on the animal movement, your movement, or the lighting, or the direction of the sun or the cloud and
Yeah.
all. Then yeah, of course, you could do some settings if possible with that one. Then you have the advantage of having a live view, and you can frame accordingly. It's not, you're not going to go very blind on that one.
Okay.
And burst mode is possible in this one, where camera traps burst mode is not so suitable in camera traps. Then for some cameras and lenses, you have the zoom in facility, or we can also go with motorized zoom on some cameras.
Okay.
Then yeah, buggy is again very suitable when it comes to filming and stuff like that. So you could get these really amazing footages of the animal, along with the movement, and even the zooms and all that will be work. So for videography, it's going to be really nice, and we can add a lot of stabilization features also onto that one. And right now, I'm working on putting up a 3-axis gimbal onto that one. It's not done yet, but I mean that's where we're working on that one. And for
Okay.
lighting also, you could put flashes inside, or you can work with external flashes or external torchlights to get the lighting. Yeah, again, I see a lot of there are my clients who are really good in the preparation of it. It's not that you just take a buggy, buy a buggy, and then deploy it onto the field. It's not going to work. I would
Okay.
recommend somebody buying a buggy, or getting into or making their own buggy, to do a lot of preparations before going onto the field, because the action sequences happen in few seconds, and you cannot take time in terms of deployment. You cannot take 5 or 10 minutes to deploy. The
Yeah.
more you practice, the more your preparations are. You can deploy a buggy in about less than 30 seconds. So that's the ideal time. So preparation is very important. The practice is also very important, and you also need to take precautions while deploying the buggy onto the field. Not just precautions about safeguarding the buggy and the camera, but you also need to ensure the animals are also safe, and they are not, you don't put them into trouble, or you don't irritate them much with
Yeah.
this. So you approach it where even the approach time and all that, just like when we do birding, you don't rush into a bird. The moment you
Yeah.
see a bird, you don't rush into it. You would
Yes.
take time, every say after a couple of seconds or couple of minutes is when you move a feet further, and then you would stay for some time. And that's the typical approach what you need to do. Even when you have a buggy, you just cannot rush into an animal and irritate the animal. You're not going to get shots, and at the same time there are good chances that the animal might destroy the buggy, or uh, damage the buggy. So
Okay.
be very patient. People have to test the comfort line of the animal also, and then approach accordingly. Then yeah, about the flashes and camera, I could yeah, I mean, it's just about the way you use and learn. Yeah, this is the buggy. I'll just show you how easy it is to set up the buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just need two cables. This is the shutter cable which is going into the camera. Then you have the live view HDMI cable which goes into the camera, and more or less it is same for every camera. Then this is the battery, which is a lipo battery which stays behind in a compartment. Once you're done setting up two cables, then you switch on the camera, the live view mode, and this is where you start switching on the control station. You switch on the screen, the control station, and in couple of seconds you will get the live view. Yeah,
Okay.
now the live view is on. This is the tilt function. It functions about 38 degrees up and down.
Okay.
And then this is the buggy movement. The right side joystick will control the buggy movement from forward, back, left, right, and it
Yeah.
can pan 360 degrees. And the knob on the left is your tilt,
Yes.
and the left joystick is autofocus and shutter release.
Oh.
Okay, so yeah, the autofocus and the shutter release function is on your left joystick.
Okay.
And once you've done testing, this is the enclosure.
Yeah.
This is made of carbon fiber and epoxy uh, material. So it's quite strong. It can take beating, but I mean, at the same time, it cannot beat the brute force of the animal.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've ensured as much security for the camera and also the animal. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything you want to ask here?
Yeah. How far you can move this from the controller?
Okay, basic function will be about say 200 meters is a comfortable thing to achieve on this without any additional modification. But I mean, there is no end to it. You can even take it to a kilometer or 2 kilometers. You have to keep upgrading the transmitters and receivers. But I mean, it's not practical to use anywhere between more than 70 or 80 meters. It's not ideal to operate because you will not have the situational awareness. At
Okay.
80 meters, a buggy is going to look so small. You don't know what stone is there. You don't know where the animal is and the buggy is.
True.
So it's going to be very difficult to operate beyond 80 meters or 70 meters. So ideal thing will be about anything less than 80 meters will be an ideal thing. But the buggy can operate for about 200 meters in the stock condition and the stock antennas and transmitters. But anything more can be upgraded.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the size of the camera, like a camera like D6 can be fit in this.
Camera like?
A camera like Nikon D6 can be fit
Yeah, yeah.
inside this.
See, any of the flagship cameras, I don't recommend because the height is more.
Yeah.
The cameras with the inbuilt battery bank or the external battery bank is going to increase the center of gravity of the whole thing. And there's
Okay.
not going to be too much of a balance, and even the tilt function is going to hamper quite a bit. So I would
Okay.
suggest anything like your one
850.
step lesser than your flagship, like your D850 on Nikon and
Okay.
5D Mark IV kind of a thing on Canon are really
Yeah.
wonderful. And even Sony, I think most of the Alpha series should do good without the battery bag.
Okay. So all the even Nikon or Canon, all these mirrorless cameras also does the function.
Yeah. I mean, anything can be fixed onto that one, and you can interchange between Nikon and Canon also. You just need to figure out what cable to be inserted into that one, and you can shuffle between
Okay.
Nikon and Canon. But Sony works on a different platform, so I mean, Sony has to be a different model altogether. So
Okay. Okay.
that's what yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now about why camera trapping, or what are the advantages of camera trapping. One biggest advantage is we get to capture the rare and elusive species, and since we'll be working around the clock, that's a big advantage. Even you're not on the field, but say you deploy say 3 or 4 cameras, that means it's like 3 cameramen sitting for 24 hours for the next 15 days to
Yeah.
capture a particular animal. So well, that's another advantage. You can work around the clock. There's no limitation of timing and stuff like that. And especially for nocturnal animals, like for example fishing cat. I mean, I would have gone there so many times, but hasn't I haven't been able to see a fishing cat with my naked eye till date. So they're
Okay.
so bloody elusive, and they really their movements are very late in the night, that is post midnight. So, but
Mm-hmm.
anyway, on the camera traps, it's convenient to capture such species.
Okay.
Again, when it comes to camera traps, you have a lot of creative freedom to work with. You're not limited by what is happening there or what scenario is happening there where you cannot do much. But when it comes to camera trapping, the moment you know which path the animal is walking, you can select the best possible background, or you can create a background kind of a thing, and you can light up the scene the way you want. You can have a different lighting for the subject, and you can have a different lighting for the backdrop or the trees
Background.
behind. So you will
Okay.
have a lot of creative freedom to work around,
Yeah.
and you can set up the scene the way you want. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you set up the whole thing, and you expect a model to walk in and click for itself and then move.
Yeah.
And another advantage is you can get multiple subjects in the same deployment. Say, there are times when I got about 7 or 8 different species in the same deployment. That's a very big advantage. As long as if you're planning really nice of what are the subjects available in that particular path, and you select the DOF accordingly so that it can also target smaller animals and the bigger animals, it's
Mm.
very convenient to get multiple species in a particular deployment. Then you have an opportunity to capture some rare behavior moments. One is of that fishing cat I've just shown you, where
Yeah.
I was very lucky to get that kind of a thing. And next, I have a couple of images where I'm not using in this particular presentation, but I was very lucky to get a sequence of images where the wild dogs are chasing a samba deer, a group of them. So
Oh.
that is one. Then there is one more image which I will be showing you in the presentation, where the couple of images where I captured the brown fish owl along with the bat. And that's really surprising, and I couldn't study much further on that one. But it was very surprising that on 2 3 occasions where I could find the bat and that brown fish owl in the same frame. So you get to capture some of the behaviors of the animal where where the human presence is not there. There are more possibilities that they would show their natural behavior. And yeah, of course, rare moments is what I already
Yeah.
spoke about. Yeah, this is my camera trap enclosure. I would just show you a small video of the whole setup over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my wireless unit. These are the external batteries which you see for all the transmitters and the camera. Even the camera I run through these external 18650 batteries.
Okay.
And that's a Pelican case.
Okay.
I keep it very dirty because I don't want much attraction whenever these tribals or anybody walking in. I want it to
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
very cheap. So I just use these boxes. That is my
Yeah.
flash enclosure. Those are
Mm-hmm.
just normal food containers,
Lunchbox.
waterproof
Yeah.
food containers. And that's the sensor. And the moment something passes, my flashes and uh, the remote control would trigger the
Okay.
camera. And this is my gear. This is probably about 7 of my rigs. So from left to right, left are the camera enclosures. The ones next to it are the flash enclosures. The next to them are my sensors. Then the cameras, the flashes, the wireless units, and then the batteries.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is my typical deployment.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the things which are needed, or the things which you've planned before doing a camera trap setup or an assignment. One is you
Yeah.
would choose the subjects.
Yeah.
And whenever you're doing camera trapping, it's always better if you try to do a subject which hasn't been captured before much. So that would give you a lot of advantage of doing the whole thing, where you know that fishing cat gave me a lot of advantage when it comes to picking a particular subject. It was very strategic. Then I thought that not many in the world have captured that particular species. So
Mm-hmm.
I tried to do my best in terms of portraying the subjects which were not done before.
Okay.
Then another important thing where camera trappers or people with remote buggy should ensure is take necessary permissions if it is in a reserve forest, or if it is under any forest department. It's always better to take written permissions than get into
Okay.
any trouble later.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the wildlife acts are a little strict, and it's not right on our part to just do the way we want. It's always better that we go speak to the concerned department or the authority and take permissions from them.
Yeah.
And another step in the planning part is, even before you deploy the DSLR camera traps, I would always recommend go with normal, point and shoot trail cams to just check the movements of the animal, the time period, or how safe it is, and say if there are any, say villagers or tribals or whoever it is, or poachers and stuff like that, where if there
Yeah.
is a threat of destroying the camera or the gear, then trail cams would also indicate us that. So if the trail cams are safe, you don't see much of a human passage over there, and you see good amount of animals passing there, and you'll also get an estimate of what is a deployment duration you will need to capture that particular animal, or at what frequency you need to go and change the batteries and stuff like that. So always do a pilot study with the trail cams, get the entire data, get the movement, understand the animal, understand the time period, the duration, the safety and stuff like that, and that is when you can start deploying the camera traps. Yeah, like behavior here is what I mean is, you know when you go onto the field, it's always important to pick up spots where they would come and poop regularly, where they would come and do their scent marking, or where they would feed, or stuff like that, where you try to understand the best possible place to capture that, and also capture the particular moment. So your trail cams will also help you study that particular behavior, and what path is it walking, which direction is it walking, because most of the time, I mean, you could anticipate that the animal is going to walk this path, but it's not a regular thing that it has to walk on that path. It could
Yeah.
take the opposite direction. Most of the time you would get bum shots, where of all the planning you've done, you've set up the camera for a head-on shot, and it would give you a bum shot. So yeah, so in spite of all the predictive analysis and all that, there is still a lot of risks or chances or failures which you would be seeing on the field.
Hmm.
Then your another planning is your number of rigs to be deployed for a particular project. You need to decide on what's your deployment cost, budget, and stuff like that, and what you should also look at the success rate. Say for example, if you have one camera, then it's just like say your success rate is going to reduce when you work with lesser number of cameras. So it's always better you move up the stream and ensure that you deploy as many cameras as possible. But
Okay.
again, I would not recommend somebody to straight away start off with 10 deployments or 5 deployments. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to understand the whole game. So when you start off, it's always better you start with one rig or one deployment. Then you understand the game. Then it becomes very easy to upscale from that point in time.
Hmm.
Then you should also look at the deployment cost. What is the cost it's going to cost you to execute that particular camera trapping project? We'll have to be realistic also into that one, and not get disappointed. Say uh, I'm not trying to tell you that you need a lot of budget. Even I started with just one camera trap, and you'll keep adding on to it slowly. Then you also need to understand the risks and the security risks, in terms of whether it is human interference, or whether it is the weather or the climate, which can whether it is rain and stuff like that, which can risk your cameras and the gear. And
Yeah.
security, we've heard of a lot of incidents where the poachers or some villagers would come and destroy your cameras. So we also need to consider all that aspects
Mm.
before deployment. Then the speed of deployment is also a very critical aspect when you do the camera trapping. It's not good for you to spend a lot of time, because you we would leave a lot of human scent over there when we work in that particular area for half an hour or an hour over there. So we would leave a lot of human scent, and animals would try and avoid that particular place. So it's
Yeah.
always better that we finish up the rigging as fast as possible. So our planning has to be, a lot of homework to be done at home so that we can go and deploy it as quickly as possible onto the field. Then the next part of the planning is whether you need to go with wired system or a wireless system. I particularly prefer a wireless system because I don't like the cables and all that dangling, or some rats coming in and biting up the cables and stuff like that, or whether it is weather damage or corrosion or moisture. So
Yeah.
my rigs are mostly wireless. Of course, I started up with wired units, but slowly I moved up to the wireless units. Then this is the preparation you need before you even go to deploy: your batteries, your toolkits, your stumps, your moisture absorbents, dehumidifiers. These are a couple of preparations which you need to do before getting onto the field. Yeah, this is a drawing of a camera trap, of how a camera trap sensor works. The one on the top right is your PIR sensor that actually sends signal to the microcontroller. The one in the red in the middle of the frame is the microcontroller, which in turn sends the signal to the camera of, the number of shots to be fired, what is the rest period need to be taken after every shot, or how many shots in total it has to fire, at what time of the day should it fire. All that kind of a programming will be in that particular microcontroller. I make my own sensors for myself. It's pretty easy. There are a lot of documents available online also, or
Okay.
otherwise there are good companies available where people can buy
Hmm.
sensors from any good branded company. And coming to the types of sensors, one is a PR sensor, that is, it detects the heat. This is a typical one which we use in the surveillance cameras in offices or godowns or wherever. It is the same particular
Hmm.
sensor, but again it triggers the DSLR camera. Then next is an AIR. This is what is an active infrared, the ones which you see in malls or wherever, where these guys open a door when you walk into that one. So it is, there is a beam, and when you cut that beam, your doors open. So that
Yeah.
is typically AIR system which is there in the malls, and it's the same thing we can apply to the camera traps also. Then there is retroreflective, which is more like an IR sensor, but one side there is a mirror or a reflector, and on the other side there is a sensor. And anything in between this mirror and the sensor will trigger off the camera.
Okay.
Then another good ones are your IR and the IR range sensors and the LiDAR. These are typically used for the distance measurement sensors. These are used in the gadgets where you actually get to measure the distance. And these are the sensors which they use in drones to detect how far the ground is, or for the landing systems and all that. So
Okay.
we can use that particular sensors also. Then we have the microwave sensors which detect the movement, and there's nothing to do with the temperature as such. It will
Hmm.
just detect the movement, but it's going to but right now this is not as popular as the other sensors are, so I won't go much into that one. Yeah, anything till here, anything you want to ask, bro?
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can carry.
Yeah, I'll just run through the quick advantages and disadvantages of what particular,
Okay.
camera or the sensor. For this one, like I told you before the presentation, I would be going little more technical onto this one, because I wouldn't want to cover too much of, composition skills and camera
Yeah.
exposure and stuff like that, because that is all available and not much of data is there on camera
Yeah.
trapping when it comes to technical aspects. So I would want to drive through that one.
Yes.
Yeah. The first one and the basic one is the PIR sensor, which is the infrared or the heat sensing sensor. The advantages of this is it's very easy to set up. The sensors are cheap, even whether you make it or whether you buy, the sensors are very cheap. Then you have a wider field of view, which is advantageous for videography or even large subjects. But you can narrow the field of view by using any pipe or any blinder kind of thing. You can always narrow the field of view. Another big advantage is it's very low power consuming. Say if you're looking at any deployment over a month or couple of weeks, then PIR is the best possible sensor choice you have for a longer deployment period. And it also has a good distance, depending on what sensor you buy, anywhere between 5 meters to 12 14 meters is what it can detect a particular subject.
Okay.
Then the disadvantages of this one is there are too many false triggers in a PIR sensor. The triggers could happen because of the sun, or any reflection from the water, or any movement from the grass, or undergrowth or trees and stuff like that. It will start triggering very badly. And you can minimize as keep working on the field. You will start working on the sweet spot where you would reduce the false triggers, but you still will not be able to avoid it completely.
Okay.
Then a typical working temperature about that 30 35, around that 35 degrees is somewhere. The detection of the sensor becomes very slow, because uh, when the temperature is closer to the mammals, wherever, whatever the temperature the mammals are, body temperature is, around that temperature, the sensor will detect it little slow. So that's one disadvantage of that one. If you have that ambient temperature of the body temperature and the ambient temperature very similar, it needs at least a 4 to 5 degrees of change, or a variation in temperature to detect. Now, the biggest difficulty is you have these precision difficulties. If it's a very small subject, like any bird or a small bat kind of a thing, then it's really not suggestible or advisable to for that particular subject.
Okay.
And yeah, like I said, against the sun and against the water, it will keep triggering a lot. Another thing is it's not too suitable for reptiles, as reptiles are cold-blooded and they will adapt to the climatic temperature over there. Yeah, and I've told you about the slow response, anyways.
Yeah.
So this is basically about the PIR sensor.
Okay.
Now, why I'm driving down in detail about the various sensors is, even if it is the same subject, the moment the scenario changes, the jungle changes or the ambience changes, you would want to experiment with different kind of a sensors at different scenarios. Every species, it's not that for all kind of species, birds, everything, you can use the same sensor. As
Mm-hmm.
you go onto the field, it's always advisable that you carry a couple of sensors. So depending on particular scenario, you can deploy or plan that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the active and retro reflective. They work on the same similar. So I'm combining both together and explaining. Basically, it's there. There is a reflector and the sensor, or the transmitter and a receiver, and there is a invisible beam passing through them.
Mm.
And the moment anything breaks that beam, it will trigger the camera.
Okay.
So the advantages of this particular one is it is very precise. Highly precise. You can get the exact shot the way you want. It will fire the way at the position where you want, and it is not a wider beam where it would trigger anywhere. So you could get that nice precise shot. The response time is very fast. When you're looking at smaller subjects, it's always better that you go with them where I've done some trapping for these small bats, where Schneider's no sleep bat, they're just about 4 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're really fast in movement. That's where I worked on these IR sensors a lot. So response time is also good. And yeah, even the distance is pretty nice. Anywhere about 15 to 17 meters or even 20 meters is what
Okay.
you can work on this one.
Mm.
Yeah, I've explained this is great for small and fast moving subjects. You can get these perfect frames. And it's also suitable for reptiles, as this doesn't consider the temperature, and as long as any subject is uh, breaking the brim, it would trigger. So for reptiles also, this is a perfect sensor to work with. Again, the disadvantages, even in this one, you have false triggers because of the high sensitivity of that particular sensor. So any dragonfly or a bee or even a butterfly could start triggering this module. So
Yeah.
when you deploy, you should also look at, if you have any issues with these flies and stuff like that, so that it doesn't drain out your camera and flashes. Yeah, another disadvantage of this one is it's very power hungry. You need to really have large batteries to it, or
Hmm.
uh, to run for a very long time, you need to have really big battery sizes. So that's a big disadvantage to this one. And yeah, like I was talking in the earlier slide, that setup time is important. This takes a lot of time to align the sensors together. So that's a big disadvantage. You would be spending a lot of time on the field. So one is you'll be wasting time, and you'll also be leaving your traces and scent over there.
Okay.
And since it's very the alignment issues are there are stability issues of the alignment also. Say, for example, any small critter comes and it hits one of that sensor, whether transmitter or receiver, and if it changes the alignment, then it would, in the next half an hour, your card is going to get filled up. So that's about the IR active.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the LiDAR sensors, the one which I said people use in drones and stuff like that. It's the same technology. I mean, all these advantages of whatever we've seen in the IR are there. It's IR are there. Plus, your setup time is going to be really fast because both the transmitter and receiver are plugged into the same gadget. So it's very easy to deploy. And again, the only disadvantage I feel about this particular LiDAR is it's very uh, power hungry as of now, and very expensive. I think the good one is costing about $450 kind of a
Okay.
thing. Otherwise, for me, I think this should be the my favorite
Sensor.
trigger for any work. But yeah,
Okay.
cost is the disadvantage. Otherwise, everything is cost and the battery power consumption.
So, which of these sensors do you use in the buggy and the camera trap?
Buggy, because we control the buggy, so buggy doesn't have any sensors.
Okay.
But again,
The,
like I told you, sensors, I use almost all of them depending on the scenario. If it is a good if it's about mammals, say I'm targeting some tigers, leopards, and stuff like that, my choice would be a PIR sensor.
okay.
PR would do my job. And for fishing cat, I've used a lot of IR and active sensors is what I used for my fishing cat projects. And IR, I used it for, bats also.
Mm.
LiDAR I've been testing, but, I made one myself, but it's not really happening. I mean, the mistake was on my side. So I haven't deployed LiDAR much. And, probably very soon I will start deploying the LiDARs also.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, the extension of your question is again here. This is how I choose my sensor. One is the deployment duration, the
Hmm.
size of the subjects, the speed of the subject, the surroundings, the ambience, the deployment speed, the cost of the whole project is what I would consider choosing the sensor. Next, again, when it comes to cameras, it is the same advantages like your full frame and APS-C. I mean, even with a regular tele lens, whatever advantages you find in that one, it would replicate over here. But again, uh, let me tell you, even if you have an APS-C sensor, it's not that you cannot do a good job onto it. APS-C
Hmm.
sensor and a kit lens, you can start really doing some good work on this one. And
Okay.
you can always have a mix and match. I do have a mix and match of both full frame and APS-C sensors. Yeah, lenses again. I most of them are kit lenses or the Tokina 1116 kind of a thing. Here, the advantages, you don't need a really fast lens like a 2.8 or a 1.8 kind of a thing. You don't require, because you will be working anywhere between that f8 to f16 depending on the scenario. So any lens, basic kit lens, should do a reasonably good job. And again, you don't need autofocus facility, or you don't need a very super fast autofocus on this one. So again, kit lens or a basic lens should do. There's one lens I would discourage to use, is a Canon 10 to 18. This bugger doesn't wake up on field on your first or second shot. So this is one
Hmm.
lens which I would recommend not to use. Otherwise, most
Okay.
of the lenses anywhere around that, 14 to 24 should be really nice. And my deployments mostly I'm on that 18
Okay.
Yeah, again, you can consider the cost of the lenses in the total
Hmm.
deployment. Yeah, the things to consider for picking up flashes is, one is sleep mode. Most of these modern flashes get into an off state after 90 minutes or so. So while choosing a flash, see that the flash doesn't sleep after 90 minutes, or you need to have a wake up signal from the sensor to the flash so that it keeps it awake. And the recycle time is another important factor. Again, depending on the recycle time, you can set up your number of shots per second on your sensor. Again, this is a balance you need to strike. It will come over a period of time when you start working with various animals, because your flash intensity will vary depending on the size of the animal. So as your flash intensity or flash power varies, the recycle time also matters. So you need to strike a balance with that one. As you keep working on that, you will arrive at a particular sweet spot. Then there is something about the capacitors in the flash which will hold the charge. Like the most popular ones, like your SB28, SB80s, or SB600, they hold your charge pretty well. So even if the flash doesn't fire for a week, the moment there is a detection, it will start firing on the first one. And most of the cameras don't happen that they get discharged. The first flash is where it recharges its capacitors, and then probably second or third shot is when it starts firing. So you need to consider that aspect also while picking up a flash. Then, of course, the battery life, depending on your deployment duration, whether it is going to work for you or not. And another thing to consider is whether you can put up any external battery onto that particular flash, or if there are possibilities to hack that particular flash and put your own external batteries.
Okay.
Then, of course, the distance and the throw and the power settings, if they are adjustable, or if you have a flash which has got fixed settings, then you need to work on the distance so that you can go forward or backward depending on the subject and the way you want it to be lit up.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, coming to the sensor settings, it is the sensitivity of how you want it. If it's too sensitive, then any small movement in the undergrowth or the leaves or whatever, it will start triggering. So you'll have to work where it should also trigger the animal and not miss the animal, and also not trigger any false triggers of the unnecessary movements. And if you pick up a good sensor, it will have the sensitivity adjustment option where you can decide the size of the subject, and any rat or a smaller critter passing by will not get triggered. It can
Yeah.
avoid that particular subject. Yeah, again, the distance and the number of shots, the flash recycle time. I mean, the this is how, again, there is no particular formula that this is going to work. Just like your normal camera, where we don't have a particular setting for every scenario. So as
Yeah.
your scenario keeps changing, you will start working on different aspects and different settings on these sensors.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, camera settings are not much. I mean, typical, I use aperture priority or a manual mode. Shutter speed is typically around that 200 to 250, where to
Flash.
whatever speed my camera and flashes are able to sync, that is going to be my typical shutter speed.
Yeah.
And F number, again, it depends on the subject and what kind of a depth of field I am looking at. So typically, I use a DOF calculator. I would check what is the best possible F number for that particular scenario. Say there is a track where I could see the animal could pass on this track or this track. So I would ensure that the depth of field is covering the entire spectrum of the path.
Okay.
And again, to what extent you want the backdrop to be in focus. So my typical would be anywhere between 8 and 16, depending on the subject and what I'm planning to do over there. Then ISO, typically you would select depending on your capability of your camera. White balance, I mean, it could be daylight, or you could leave it to the camera to decide that particular scenario. Drive is always single shot, and the number of shots are decided by the sensor.
Hmm.
And yeah, we always pre-focus, and then I put a tape onto that one. Once I once I'm done with the focusing aspect, I move on to the manual mode, then tie it up so that no any jerks or movement will not disturb the lens setting. So I would
Okay.
tape it up. Yeah. Yeah, again, your flash settings and camera settings, all this will depend on the subject, the amount of light you want, the throw you want, and what area you want it to be covered from your subject to the background. Yeah, and there's some interesting things you can try out with the flash gels. Say you can have a warmer feel onto the subject, and you can have cooler gels onto the backdrop. So you would have a lot of scope to experiment stuff like this. Yeah, this is again the basic setting up of the scene, whether it is composition, framing, lighting, the backdrop, the direction of the light, the eye level perspective, and you can add some properties over there if you think that a rock or a stone or a wooden piece or anything would make it interesting. You can always add it to the scenario over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are again housings and enclosures where you'll have to protect your camera from the animal, people, and the climate and the weather. Again, power management, I spoke before, depending on the deployment period you need to plan. And this is the most critical part of running the camera trap game, because the cameras have a different power consumption, the sensors have a different power consumption, your flash's power consumption is very, very different. So when you're planning it for 15 days or a month, you need to align everything to work for that particular period, because anything in this particular rig misfires or drains out, then your entire rig doesn't work. So
Okay.
this will need a lot of experimentation and mm, testing before you go on to the field. uh, this is another very important aspect. Yeah, this is my typical toolkit whenever I go. The stumps, I don't like damaging anything in the forest, so wherever I want to tie up my cameras or the flashes and all, I take bamboo stumps from where I'm going and not destroy anything in the field or in the forest. I carry stumps, the hammer, the light stands. Then I have these self-thread screws, hacksaw blades, drill machines. You never know what kind of a scenario arises over there, and you'll have to be very creative in doing up the scene right then and there. So all these binding wires, tapes, and everything. I'll just show you how I've executed a bat project.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my typical setup. Again, this I found a log over there. I put it across a small stream, and
Yeah.
then the one in the center is a camera. The left and right is my flashes, and the right on the right side you can see my sensor. And this is where I
Yes.
was anticipating a tiger to jump, and this is what I got.
Oh.
So yeah, I wanted a tiger to jump, but I got this one. Very lucky to get this one.
Yeah.
Okay, I went, I got this shot, I picked up the data card, set up the camera again, and I came back, and this is what happened next day. It flooded,
Oh.
and I lost my entire gear.
Hmm.
So these are the risks of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, again, there was a time when I went to Vizag. Me and Masood Bhai went to Vizag to do camera trapping for these barking deer. And
Mm-hmm.
while we were going to that particular place, we saw this small cave and we saw bats inside. And we
Okay.
decided to change the game. We left that barking deer project, and then we started. We thought we will do something with the bats. Okay, so this happened live on the scene. We changed. Then we came back. We came back that day, and there's no way, it was all solid rock inside the cave, so there's no way we
Hmm.
could uh, tie up a camera somewhere or things like that. So then we went to a hardware shop, picked up these PVC pipes. Then we
Yeah.
made the entire frame where we set up the cameras, flashes, and all, and pushed into that cave. So again, I mean, when I say about your binding wires or your axle blades and things like that, all this, you never know what kind of a scenario you're going to encounter in the forest, right? So it's always
Correct.
better you carry some things where you can be really creative and you can do on the fly.
Yeah.
So we picked up some PVC pipes, then made a frame, and this is how we tied three cameras onto PVC pipes. Oh, and this the forest guards helped us, going and pushing it inside the cave. This is how we pushed it inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is yeah, this is the result.
Wow.
Yeah, this is what we could get there.
Amazing.
Yeah, again, I tell you the success rate is very narrow in this one. There are more pitfalls than success rate. As you keep doing, we would get to this, that it's not that the moment you keep a camera, it's going to come back. There are
Hmm.
shots which I waited for a year. The one which I posted yesterday, I don't know if you've watched it,
Yes.
the one
Yes.
with the stars. I think it took more than a year of failures for me to get that one. And I'm still not
Okay.
happy with it, still working on that one. So, and there is a particular shot of the fishing cat where I wanted it to come onto the tree and then look into the camera. That took
Okay.
about 7 months. So, so it's not that moment you put a camera trap, the critter is going to
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah.
There are times when you see that critter comes, walks, looks into the camera, but you see
Hmm.
the lens being fogged, or you don't see a flash waking up or things like that. So there are a lot of failures in it, but again, it's very challenging and fun too, doing this one.
Hmm.
Again, these are the typical pitfalls. One is power, anything in the signal chain, right from your transmitter, flash to the camera, anything going, I mean, your entire rig is failed. Then you
Okay.
have these foggy lenses, then moisture keeps destroying your cameras. wake up issues, whether it is lens, camera, or the flash. Again, you have these lens false triggers, flash failures. These are the typical pitfalls in the game.
Hmm.
And again, when it comes to, I think this is one I'm very particular about. A lot of people would, prefer to bait or lure or whatever it is. But I, I personally do not like to change anything in that scenario or change the behavior of the subject. I mean, there are times when you would see people using the, urine of that particular species to lure it and all. But again, there are risks and counterproductive things happening. So I really don't encourage much that one. Maybe it would take a little more time for you to get a nice shot, but I mean, just leave the scene as it is, not disturbing it too much, or
Okay.
whether baits or lures and all that.
Yeah.
The moment, when we start doing things like this, uh, it's for photographers who are trying to do some job. The next time, it's going to make their work up very difficult. It's going to give a bad name to the entire community, saying that photographers आते हैं पूरा गंदा करके जाता है, baiting waiting करके जाता है. I mean, we
Yeah.
should get to that aspects of it, and let the whole game be very clean, and uh, let our image as photographers be clean and not even disturb the behavior or anything of the animals.
Hmm.
This is another thing which we need to ensure. Yeah, bro, I think that's about it.
Okay.
I'll just run you through some of the images, and then,
Yeah. Sure.
yeah. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, this is what I was talking about. One rare image where I got,
Yeah.
and a couple of them in this series where I got both owl and this one. I was not sure about the behavior, nor I could get to study that at later stage.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the one. After a lot of failures, I could get here, but still, I mean, I'm not 200% convinced, but still
Hmm.
getting there. Hope I get what I want very soon.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. This is another thing I tried.
So how did you manage to get this?
I tied the camera on top of to the tree branch, bro.
Oh.
Then, oh, okay. So I wanted to see how a langur would look at a tiger from a treetop. More than like I told you, being different. It's not about being good or the image has to be good. I mean, acha image to aayega, but the moment you start thinking about things in a different way, you would
Correct.
start getting interesting
Yes.
perspectives of the whole thing. Good, bad, baad mein hoga, but at least
Yes.
you'll start getting a different thing. See, when we look at the number of images we're getting in the internet today,
Yeah.
even people with a normal basic your phone are doing such amazing work.
Correct.
So we'll have to be
Different.
somewhere for people to when people are scrolling those thousands of images over day, at least they should stop for a second and see, "Are ye kya hai?"
Yeah.
Should get that feel. So that is a very big challenge for us as photographers to do here. It's not
True.
about likes or whatever it is. People to
Yeah. Yeah.
stop there and watch that particular image.
Correct.
So yeah, this I think got enough attention in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is of a bear where it came in very close, but I somehow liked the expressions and the whole stuff of it. Yeah, this one was what I got an award for in the NIF.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
I
another
think
award I got
even yeah, correct.
NIF. Yeah, this is a very recent one.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we won't get to see images like this when taken with your regular cameras on the field. So this is where work becomes very unique and different. This is I tried a different lighting. This is totally backlit. I put the flashes behind the subject. Yeah, this is
Wow.
again a recent one. When I was talking about, you set up the scene, light up the scene, and then when
Yes.
you want the model to walk in, I think this is one of
Yes.
that image where I thought I was really happy about what I, wanted to capture and what I got.
Mm.
Very close to that one. Yeah, yeah. This
Oh,
is again recently. It came. It scent marked on my camera, and
uh,
it went past. I mean, look at the expressions and all. Yeah. This is again a recent image where I've put different lighting for the temple behind, and somehow I wanted to, depict the coexistence of a temple and this one also
yes,
of the wild animal.
yeah,
So I set up a different lighting for the subject and a different lighting for the temple behind,
okay,
and I could get couple of species over here.
okay,
And this again, I
hmm.
wanted the tiger to come and drink water in this
Yeah,
water place, but this is a surprising image. I mean, this guy came, sat on my on the rock where I put the camera trap. So this is again a fluke and a lucky image which I didn't plan, but you get these interesting frames sometimes.
yeah,
I mean, stuff like this is impossible with a regular camera, brother. I mean, whatever, I mean,
yeah, yeah.
how close would you get to a subject like
You're
this?
right. You're right.
Yeah, this again is very much what I wanted. I put some rocks and all over there. I
Uh,
wanted small critters to walk on that one, and happened again. This is what I exactly wanted, and it happened.
hmm.
This is
Oh.
again a lucky shot. I didn't do anything about this. Okay, the moment the first shot fired, I mean, this guy was scared and it jumped, and then the second shot, this is what got captured.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's both ways, brother. I mean, you get so many disappointments onto the field, and there are times you get really lucky also, what you didn't
correct.
expect to come onto your frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's it, brother. Anything else?
Ah, that was like a visual
Sorry if
treat
I've
for us.
taken too much of your time.
No, no, no. We wish you could have taken more images. Sure. It was
Yeah,
interesting and a lot of knowledge. We have a few questions.
yeah, sure.
So, Ellie from Dubai, our regular audience, one of the regular audience, he's asking how stealthy is the buggy?
Stealthy in the sense,
Like how strong it is.
it is pretty strong here, but you cannot beat the brute force of a, say, a rhino or a elephant. It's going to break.
Oh,
But one
okay,
thing I've ensured is, even if the shell breaks, the animal will not be able to bite it or chew or anything like that. It will not be able
okay,
to tear. So on
okay,
that perspective, I've ensured it is safe. Again, in terms of stealthiness, in terms of escaping that particular route, say if an elephant is charging and you want to escape from that place, you're pretty stealthy on that one.
okay.
Okay,
And can,
but I don't
yeah,
recommend to go that fast in the jungle and disturb the animals and the noise and all
yeah,
that stuff. You're supposed to approach very slowly.
yes,
So the pace or the speed or the stealthiness you can use only to escape rather than shoot.
got it.
While shooting, you just need to move one inch, one inch, one inch. Say for about 10 meters, you need to take about half an hour. That's where
Okay,
you're going to get amazing shots.
got it. And can it maneuver obstacles easily, or it takes much practice and awareness of the terrain?
Yeah, you will need practice, man. You will need a lot of practice. Depending on that one only, you'll be able to do it on the field. That's what I told you about, preparedness to be required when you go onto the field. So it's always better you practice, you understand the obstacle, you understand the limitations and the capabilities of the buggy before you deploy.
Okay, great. And we have another funny question. How many cameras you lost during your camera trap projects?
Uh, okay, I don't know, man. Maybe six, seven,
Oh my
six or
God.
seven, and
Okay.
flashes. I think more than 14 or 15 flashes.
Oh, how come flashes are?
Flashes burn up, and these are all those 20-year-old, 25-year-old. So
Okay.
if you have one night of false triggering, and then
Oh,
your flash is gone.
okay, okay,
Okay, and of my entire equipment, what I used in for fishing cats, the entire equipment got corrosion. I
yeah,
lost all those cameras, the flashes and all. They stopped working after some time.
okay,
And if I made it moisture proof and put it very tight so that there was no moisture, then I was getting these, humidity and all that in front of the lens. So I
okay,
had to take a call there. And yeah, good number of losses happened here over the period.
okay. And how often do you go to visit the traps? Do you keep it for a
Again,
long
that
time?
depends on the distance and my deployment. I mean, typically, we'll keep it at anywhere between 2 weeks and 3 weeks.
Okay, and the
2 to
battery
3 weeks.
lasts. How does the battery during
Yeah,
this time?
my rigs can run up to, theoretically, they can run up to a month
Okay,
in theory.
okay,
But in practical, I mean, they may say if you have one bad night of false triggering, they die off in 3 days.
okay,
Okay, or if
yeah,
there is too much of a movement over there, then in six or 700 flashes it's going to die off. So that's
yeah,
about it. It's not that all your rigs are going to say, if I deploy 4 cameras, two
yeah.
might be working, two might get switched off.
Okay,
So typically 15 to anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks is my standard time of going, putting up new batteries, collecting the data and redeploying them and coming back.
okay. Uh, do you also prepare camera trap rigs like the buggy camera?
See, I do it for myself, but I don't offer it commercially. I'm not selling it as of now.
Okay,
Okay, I wanted to do it, but somehow that project is tanked as of now, and I haven't moved further after this COVID and all that.
so we
So
can't
it's
get it
stalled over there.
for commercially. We can't.
Yeah, as of now, no.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh, the next question is usually what is the distance in meters you keep your focus locked?
Again, it depends on the subject. Say for a fishing cat, my typical focusing distance would be 3 feet. Getting that
Okay,
depth of field from 1.5 feet to about 12 feet would be
okay,
my this thing. Say if it is a tiger, then I would look at, again, depends whether I'm using an APS-C or a full frame. If it is full frame for a tiger, I would go anywhere between 6 and 7 feet.
okay,
Okay, if it's an APS-C, maybe I would look at even 10, 12 feet, depending
okay,
on the subject. Yeah.
okay, great. Uh, Next is how do you deal with a rainy season? What if like during your project a rain comes in between?
I just showed you one of my, trap got, washed away.
Yeah,
But if it is for a regular, if it doesn't get flooded, there is not a problem. It
okay,
shouldn't get flooded and the level shouldn't come up.
yeah.
As
A
long as it's
normal rain,
flowing rain, it is protected. Yeah.
it is protected.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. And we have one more question. How difficult it is to process these photos that you take?
Process.
Yeah, post processing, I guess.
Post process, you hardly get to post process this image. There's no need because all your lighting and all that you've set up accordingly. So not much of post processing. I don't do much of post processing here
Okay,
anymore.
and there are no much grains since you're shooting in the.
See, there are grains, but again, that adds to the beauty. I'm not too bothered
Okay,
about noise, brother. It's okay. I don't
okay,
bother about noise anymore.
okay. Yeah, so these are the questions we had, and
Yeah.
thank you so much. It was a very
Thank you,
nice
bro.
session, brother. Yeah, we'll see you soon.
See you, bro. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, sir. Bye, bye,
Bye.
bye. Yeah, that was Mr. Anjani Kumar. Amazing session we had again. A lot of informations. Thank you all for watching, and we'll have another session on 18th of this month, like in another 3 days. So looking forward for that. And till then, take care. Bye for now.